Hi everyone and welcome to Book Boop. My name is Rachel and today, as promised, I have another list of standalones for you, specifically young adult standalones. So I have 10 different standalone books to talk about today. So if you're looking for some just books that stand on their own, they don't part of a series or anything like that, you just want something that's just its own thing, then I've got some great recommendations for you. If you happen to hear a mower or something like that, my husband is currently mowing the lawn, so I apologize if you can hear that in the background. But without further ado, let's go ahead and jump in. The very first one I have for you is a graphic novel. It's the only one I have on this list that's a graphic novel, and that is Pumpkinheads by Rowell. This is a standalone, perfectly encapsulates the October and autumnal vibes. It is absolutely perfect for October and for Halloween, for all the fall vibes. We are following this young man here and this young lady here, and they both work at a corn maze sort of fall festival type thing every single year, every fall. They've done it throughout, I think, their junior high and high school years, and this is their senior year. This is the last time they will both be serving and like working at this corn maze festival thing for the last time. They're both really sad about it, but it just follows them in their last night working together there, and it is perfect. It kind of takes you around throughout this whole thing. There's, as I said, a corn maze, but there's also a bunch of booths that sell caramel apples and all sorts of delicious things. There is a petting zoo and a very just sort of rambunctious and angry goat. It is fantastic. I absolutely adore it. It's adorable. It's got a little bit of a romance story to it as well, and it's just the perfect thing to read for the fall. So, or any time of year, honestly. If you're a huge fall person like I am, you just want a quick book with some fall vibes. So this is a great standalone graphic novel. Highly recommend. So good. Let's jump into a couple books that have more of a sci-fi edge if you're looking for something that has a little bit of sci-fi feels to it. One of them is Midnight at the Electric by Jodi Lynn Anderson. This is a short little book and I love it. It is so heartwarming and heart-wrenching and fantastic. I will try to explain the general plot to you as best as I can. It's a little bit all over the place, but hopefully it sounds clear. At the beginning of this book, we are following a young woman who no longer really has any family that's living, and this is taking place in the future, and she's decided that she thinks she wants to be a part of this program. I can't remember if it's either colonizing the moon or colonizing Mars, but she's going on this program where she's going to be leaving Earth and going and colonizing on a different planet. And then she ends up finding out that she has one more relative left. That's an old lady, and she goes to stay with her for a little bit before she finally decides whether or not she's going to go and colonize on this other planet and leave Earth behind probably forever. While she is staying with this older relative, she ends up finding a diary, and in this diary is some of her relatives from the past, and it takes place during I guess it's like the Kansas Dust Bowl situation, I think in the early 1900s, if I'm remembering correctly. So it jumps back and forth between kind of futuristic present time and past time, and it's a lot told in diary format, and it's kind of about the importance of family and our roots. And it's wonderful. I love it. I know that sounds like a very confusing description. I feel like I never describe this book well. It's just hard to describe, but I absolutely love it. I love Jodi Lynn Anderson's writing style, and it's so good. So I highly recommend, and it has a little bit of a sci-fi-ness to it, but not too much. So if you just want a little bit of sci-fi in there, or you're not used to sci-fi, this is a good one for you. Another one here, I think is one of the most interesting, kind of quirky and dark sci-fis, and I adore it, and that is The Kingdom by Jess Rothenburg. This cover is so cool. I'll give you 2 words to describe this book. Dark Disney. If that intrigues you, this is the book for you. In this story, we are following this android who works within this place called the Kingdom. The Kingdom is basically like Disney World. It's a place where people can ride rides and meet some of their favorite characters. The difference, though, between our Disney World we're used to and the Kingdom is the fact that all the princesses are not being played by real people. They're being played by these androids that are basically created and programmed to be like this perfect representation of these princesses. So these little girls and boys come to meet their favorite heroines, and they're all dressed up all fancy and all this kind of stuff. And of course, they're programmed a specific way so that they behave like these characters, but also that, of course, they're not supposed to harm anybody. They're supposed to protect and love and care for all the people that come to the park. Even if people are rude to them or whatever, they have specific programming. Until one day, one of the androids actually ends up killing a child. And we follow actually one of the androids whose best friend was the one that kind of went haywire. And we're following in her perspective, this android's perspective, wondering what happened to her friend, what happened to create her programming to go haywire and for this horrible thing to happen, what built up to that. So it's like a mystery type thing, but it's really cool to see it within the perspective of one of the androids, and kind of that thought of, are androids that are programmed with emotions, should they be treated as fellow human beings, or are they only just programmed computers and that kind of thing? But it's just sort of this dark, twisted Disney vibe. So if you're interested in that concept, I highly recommend this one. This is fun and a really, really unique kind of dark, twisted Disney sci-fi. So I think this one is a good time and you will have a fun time with it. All right, the next one that I have is one I'm going to pull up on my Kindle here for you because I don't physically have it. I read it recently from the library and it's a relatively recent release. And it's got a nice, creepy, and mystery vibe to it. Let me pull up the cover if I can find it. Here we go. It's called Don't Tell a Soul by Kirsten Miller. This story, we're following this lovely young woman here on the cover. She is moving in with her uncle who lives in this small town outside of New York. And he is currently living within this giant manor that he's wanting to turn into, I think, a bed and breakfast or something like that. And he's been working on trying to restore this big manor within this small town. The reason this girl is moving in with her uncle is the fact that she's had some tragic things happen in her life in New York, and she's needing to get away from that. But her uncle has faced tragedy recently as well. A fire broke out in the manor where his wife ended up being killed, and his stepdaughter, they think is the one who started the fire, but they're not sure. And also he thinks his stepdaughter has gone crazy and she's been put in a mental institution. And this girl moves in with her uncle and wants to get to the bottom of what's going on. What happened that night of the fire? Is this girl really crazy? And also there's ghosts involved. I love me a spooky, dark manor in a small town where everybody knows each other and they're all like real suspicious of each other. Everyone's in everybody's business. It's a really, really fun mystery, not horror, mystery, but like paranormal, thriller-ish. It's just a good time. If that doesn't convince you, it's just a good time. I had a good time with it. And the cover, again, is really cool and spooky with the ghosty hands. So if you're looking for something with a little bit of spook and some mystery to it, highly recommend Don't Tell a Soul. I think it'll be a lot of fun for you. All right, let's continue to move on with the creepy vibes, and then I have a few fantasies at the end to talk about. So this next one is one I haven't really heard much about, but if you like more multimedia type style books, kind of a la the Illuminae files or things like that, I recommend The Dead House by Dawn Kurtagich. I always pronounce that wrong, and I still probably pronounced it wrong. This story also is relatively difficult for me to explain, but hopefully I can explain it well. Like I said, it's got a multimedia style. There are letters and text messages, and there are also video files that are described in here, and it just has a really interesting type style, diary entries, all sorts of things like that. So if that is your jam, you'll probably really enjoy this. In this story, we are following this girl who has a very unique, interesting personality issue. I don't know if that's the right word to say, but she has multiple personalities. But it's split perfectly to where during the day, she is one girl, and at night, she's a completely different person. Same body, completely different personality, completely different person entirely. So she has two different people who is living inside her body. She's living at a boarding school, and I think in the past, by the time we start this book, there has been a horrible fire that broke out, and I think a lot of people died, and they think that one of the personalities of one of the girls is the one that started the fire, but they're not sure. that's kind of all I'm going to say. I can't really explain it any better than that, but it's just sort of following the events that lead up to the fire, reading diary entries from this girl, and really interesting to see that she actually writes notes to herself. Like, she'll write a note during the day for her evening person, different personality to read. So it's like they're sisters / friends, but they never truly meet each other, but they know they exist. It's really strange. It's such a strange concept. So if that sounds interesting to you and you also like a multimedia aspect and some mystery to it as well, I highly recommend this one. It's nice and spooky and creepy, and it's just a really interesting concept for a story. So highly recommend that one. Going on the spooky vibe still, we've got Now Entering Adamsville by Francesca Zappia. Francesca? I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm terrible at pronouncing names, apparently. This one sounds like all the vibes that I love. It's got the small town vibes. It has a girl who has paranormal type abilities that she is able to fight. She's basically like a demon slayer. So think like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, okay? So small town, Buffy the Vampire Slayer vibes. Also involving a ghost hunting TV show. Are you interested yet? Sounds fun, doesn't it? So we're following this girl who has this ability and kind of feels like she has this calling to fight these demons within this town. She's kind of the only one that knows about them. Nobody else in the town knows about them. And she is fighting these demons that have a tendency to set things on fire. I just realized there's a lot of fire-related things. But these demons that set things on fire, and people tend to have a tendency to die in these fires. That's why the demons set them. They want to hurt people. And so this girl fights these demons. However, the town doesn't know these demons exist and thinks she's the one that's setting these fires and that she's an arsonist, basically. So the whole town's kind of against her. Nobody really likes her. And she's just sort of like this sarcastic girl that knows everybody hates her, but she still tries to help people and save people anyways. And it's fantastic. There ends up being a lot of hauntings and things like this in this small town. And because of that, this ghost hunting TV show crew comes to their small town to film some episodes of some different haunted places in the town. But our girl here knows some things are going to go down, and she's trying to protect this ghost hunting crew from the demons and the ghosts that want to harm them. So this is a lot of fun. This is a good time. If you like some spookiness, you want some Buffy vibes, this is a good one. So highly recommend as well. This next one is a kind of crossover between paranormal and fantasy. So if you're a fantasy reader, but you like a little spookiness, a little paranormal in there, then this was the one for you. That is The Bone Houses by Emily Lloyd Jones. Like I said, this is a nice mix of paranormal in here. We've got these creatures called, well, they're not creatures. They're called bone houses, basically zombies, people that are dead, and they end up coming out of their graves and wandering around. The dead houses, bone houses, that's what they're called. I remembered the name of this book. So in this story, we're following this girl and her family who are the local caretakers for the graveyard in their small village. They bury and dig the graves. They do all that stuff. They take care of the graveyard. But an interesting thing about this graveyard is they also have an issue with bone houses. Some of the people that they bury don't stay dead and they come back out. Now, it's pretty creepy to have like a dead person wandering around, but thankfully it hasn't been a huge issue in that the person just kind of wanders around, but they're not harming anything. They don't hurt anybody. They just come back out of their graves and wander around. And then one day, some bone houses start to come out of the forest in this, or that surrounds this village. And these bone houses start being violent. They start harming people, trying to kill people. And this girl takes upon herself, she's like, you know what? I'm going to go figure out what's going on. I'm going to go find out why these bone houses are coming out of the forest, why they are so angry, why they are so violent. And she goes on a quest to figure out what's going on. And it's fantastic. It's a mix of paranormal. We've got the creepiness zombie vibes to it. It's kind of creepy in that respect. There's fantasy vibes to this as well. It is so fun. I loved it. I adore the main character. She is so hardcore, so BA. She's sarcastic and awesome. There's a little bit of romance in here, but not too much. It's not in the forefront. I think it's done perfectly. It's a nice slow burn, which I personally love. Realistic slow burn. There's also some really, really great chronic pain rep in this as well. So I highly recommend this book. It's one of the most gorgeous covers. I think it's so pretty, and I highly recommend. So if you like a little bit of spooky, a little bit of fantasy, this is the one for you. All right, now that I've kind of gotten that one out of the way that has a mix of both, let's go into some more fantasy, okay? So I've got 3 more here for you. One of them is House of Salt and Sorrows by Erin A. Craig. You guys, I adore this one. Not only does it have a gorgeous cover, it has a gorgeous story inside as well. This is a retelling for the 12 Dancing Princesses fairy tale with a dark twist. I love me some things with a dark twist. In this story, we are following this family of the 12 dancing princesses. So we have 12 sisters in this big family. They are a kind of like higher class, richer family in this small seaside town. They live in this big manor right next to the sea. So think like thunderstorms and crashing waves and big, dark, spooky manor, those vibes. This book has fantastic atmosphere. Just put on like a ASMR room with some thunderstorm and some fire crackling, and that is the perfect mood you need to read this book. So we're following one of the sisters who doesn't believe that her family is cursed. She thinks something's going on. So the surrounding village thinks her family is cursed because each of the sisters, starting with the oldest going on down, is dying in mysterious ways. And so one of the sisters, who is getting close in line to kind of being the oldest now at this point, is like, okay, something's going on. I don't believe that my sisters died normally. This isn't normal. I don't believe my family's cursed. Something's going on. I'm going to figure out what. So it's a mystery of her trying to figure out what is happening to her sisters. Why are they mysteriously dying? Is she next? It is spooky and fantastic, and I love it. It has such a great atmosphere. So if you are in the mood to read a fairy tale retelling, one that hasn't really been retold very much at all and has a little bit of a spooky spin on it, then highly recommend. This one is a lot of fun. All right, 2 more for you. This one is dear to my heart because I love Alice in Wonderland, and this is Heartless by Marissa Meyer. This is a standalone back origin story to the Queen of Hearts, and boy howdy is it amazing. It has so many great references to the original Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass stories, and like I said, Marissa Meyer takes us through a roller coaster of finding out the origin story of the Queen of Hearts. You know she's a villain. How does she get there? So I'm not going to say anything else other than that. I don't want to describe any of the story to you. I don't want to ruin anything or spoil anything. Just, it's an origin story for the Queen of Hearts. So if that sounds interesting to you, go for it. It has the perfect Alice in Wonderland vibes. It's whimsical. It's fantastical. It's kind of gut-wrenching a little bit to me because whenever you read a villain origin story, you know what's going to happen. Like, you know by the end, this person's going to be a villain. How do they get there? You know, how do they get to that point to where they are who they are in the stories we've read? So if that interests you, highly recommend. This is such a fantastic standalone, such a great origin story. Sorry if you can hear the mower. My husband is now in the front yard and it's even louder. So let's wrap this up and do the last one on this list here. And it's one I actually just finished reading last night and I really enjoyed it a lot. It's Sorcery of Thorns, ooh, the reflection, by Margaret Rogerson. I apologize that it is so reflective. It has a library cover thing on it. It's just very reflecty and plasticky. This one was so much fun. So if you are a lover of books, a lover of libraries, then this is the book for you. So we are following this girl named Elizabeth, and she has lived her whole life as an orphan in one of the great libraries. Now, that sounds pretty fantastic, right? To live in a library, but here's the thing. The libraries in this particular fantastic world have not normal books in them, but things called grimoires. These grimoires are actually alive. So think the Monster Book of Monsters from Harry Potter. You get what I'm saying? So it's a book, but it's got personality to it. It might bite, or it might sing, or it might do all sorts of crazy things. Some of the books are relatively nice. Some of them are a different class of something a little bit darker. Maybe they have some dark spells in them, or they're very forbidden magic, and those are really dangerous grimoires. So it's a very dangerous job to be living and working in a library. This is all Elizabeth has wanted. She wants to eventually become a warden, which is sort of like one of the head people within the library. She wants to protect these books, protect people from them as well. She has a huge love for these books and for the library, until one day one of the books ends up transforming into a monster, which is something that can happen, especially with some of the more dangerous books. They can transform into a monster and harm people and kill people. And that's part of the danger of being in these libraries and taking care of these books, is that can happen. So one night this happens. A book turns into a monster and she has to protect the people in the nearby village, and she ends up going out and trying to stop this grimoire from hurting other people. Problem is after that, people look at her and blame her for it. They think it is her fault. She ends up getting blamed for the whole situation, and the story escalates from there. I'm not going to describe much else. This goes in all sorts of different directions, so many ways that I didn't expect, but I really love it. It's got a little bit of kind of like more like dark sorcery, demonic type stuff a little bit in it. And of course, there's lots of magical libraries, magical books, so it's got lots of love for books. And it's fantastic, and I loved it. I love this character. Elizabeth's great. It's also some nice like tall rep. This girl is unusually tall, and I love that. Usually a lot of characters don't, especially women, they're usually not like super tall, and I just love her character and how she deals with that because she just sort of deals with the fact that she ends up being really, really tall. And anyways, that's beside the point. But this one's a lot of fun. So if you want a fantasy that has a lot of focus on the love of books with a lot of fantasy aspects to it, it's so much fun. It's a good time. Highly recommend. So there you go. All right. Those are all the books. I feel like that was a mess. My brain is all over the place today, so I apologize if some of the descriptions didn't make any sense. But there are 10 standalone young adult recommendations for you. Let me know down below if any of these interest you, if you kind of added some of these to your TBR, or let me know if you've read any of these. I would love to talk with you about them. Also, if you have any other young adult standalone recommendations, leave them down below as well for myself and for other viewers, so we can just add to the list, because actually this was a hard one to do. There are a lot of YA series, and it doesn't feel like there's as many YA standalones, especially in the fantasy realm. There are a lot of series. So anyways, hope you had a good time. On this side of the video here is my logo. If you click on that, you can subscribe to my channel, follow me on my book journey. On this side of the video over here is a suggestion for another video if you'd like to watch another one right now. But thank you so much for watching. You rock, and don't forget to keep reading. Bye.